What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Hoopers Lounge with myself and Alex. And today we will be recapping more of a crazy NBA offseason that's been taking place over the last week or so. We kind of waited a long time between these episodes to give as much time as possible for more trades and more free agent signings to happen. And we have a lot to go over today as the NBA looks completely different than it did when we recorded our last episode. So really excited to get into it here. And we are going to start with, in my opinion, the biggest trade since our most recent episode, and that is that the Celtics have gotten off of Jaylen Brown and sent him to their division rival, arguably their biggest rival, the Philadelphia 76ers, in an absolutely absurd trade. Paul George, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks are heading to Boston. I believe one of those first-round picks is a pick swap. I'm not sure the exact details on the pick, but that is the overall compensation for a guy like Jaylen Brown. And I look at this package, and I think to myself, a lot of teams in the NBA maybe could have done more than this from a pick perspective, which makes me think, why would Boston send him to an East rival like Philadelphia, a team that you hate so much? Because when I looked at this package for a guy like Brown, who's in his prime, who really has no weaknesses in his game at this point in his career, I just thought they could have got a little more for him, honestly. And Paul George, like, we know what he is at this point in his career. He's an 18 point per game guy who's going to play 50 games a season. And in the playoffs, he's going to be inconsistent for the most part. So I'm not really enthused by that move. The picks are cool, though, but I still think they could have got more, maybe first-round picks, and just threw away the seconds for a guy like Brown. Alex, what are your thoughts on the trade for Philly, for Boston, compensation? Like, what do you think about this?
Yeah, Philly absolutely fleeced Boston here for multiple reasons. One, Paul George is about to become one of the worst contracts in the NBA based on what we saw him play last time. Philly signed him to a 4-year max deal 2 years ago, and he looked completely washed after year one. It looked like Philly was going to have to give up multiple first-round picks to get rid of this contract. And to be fair, they did give him multiple first-round picks. They gave up 2 unprotected and 2 pick swaps. But in return, they got Jaylen Brown, a Finals MVP for one of the worst contracts in the league. It's unbelievable. Yeah, if you're Philly, you pull the trigger on this deal 10 times out of 10. I heard the initial proposal that Boston made Philly was Paul George and 5 first-rounders. So I don't know how Philly was able to get down to Paul George and 2 first-rounders, but whatever Philly's GM did, absolute fleece. And for Boston, I don't understand this trade at all from your perspective. Like you said, this is your Eastern Conference rival. This is a team that eliminated you from the playoffs last year in an emotional, hard-fought Game 7. Eliminated you, and you're sending them the guy that led your team all year? Like, I know you have Jason Tatum, who was on the bench most of the year. I know that does make things a little different, but it just seems like a really peculiar choice to decide to send Jaylen Brown to, especially because they were, like you said, there are a lot of other teams that seem like they could have offered better in terms of picks or players themselves. Like, we were talking about the Trailblazers a lot in the few days before Jaylen Brown got traded. They were the favorite to acquire Jaylen Brown, and they themselves could have done better with picks and or players than Philly. So I'm just confused for Boston. Why did you decide on a rival instead of sending Jaylen Brown out west where you won't have to worry about it? It just does not make much sense to me from a Celtics perspective. It shows a complete lack of loyalty to players. Like, I'm sure players aren't exactly willing to re-up long-term with Boston after seeing how they treated one of their star players, one of their franchise icons. It's just a very confusing look all around, and maybe the trade that has stunned me the most since the Luka Doncic trade. Not necessarily because Jaylen Brown got traded, but more who we got traded to and what he was received for. Because a Finals MVP for 2 unprotected picks in Paul George is kind of crazy. It's very lopsided, it seems, on paper.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love this for Philly because not only does it help you, obviously, like, this was their biggest need, was wing, and they just got arguably the best 3 and D guy in the league, who, like you said, is a Finals MVP. So he's more than a 3 and D, but that's really the encapsulation of his game is he can score and he plays defense. One of the best two-way players in the league today for sure. But also it hurts another team you're competing to get to the finals. Like, so you're killing two birds with one stone by improving your own roster and then hurting the other team's roster. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think Philly absolutely won this trade on paper. Again, we'll have to see the health of Embiid, how Brown fits, like who is the alpha in that locker room. I really do love that Maxey is going to be a secondary option now, though. I think he's the clear-cut number 2 behind Jaylen Brown. I think Embiid might slide to a number 3 role just because of his availability. And I think Maxey as a number 2 option is going to be very similar to what we saw with Kyrie in Cleveland. Just a dude that can absolutely score 30 on you at any point, but isn't responsible for carrying an entire offense. That to me is the role Maxey is stepping into, and I think he's going to flourish in that role, in my opinion. I think this is going to be probably the best year of Maxey's career coming up, just because of the pressure that's off his shoulders from an offensive standpoint now. By acquiring a guy like Brown, I think he's just going to play so much more free, so much more, just up and down. So I'm really excited for Maxey here. And then I do want to talk from Boston's perspective. I don't hate it because you had to move off of Brown after this offseason based on what he was saying on his live streams and kind of how the locker room was shaking out. I feel like Brown was just the piece that had to be moved off of. But I just wish they shipped him out west. I think nobody knows as much as the Celtics how valuable and how good a guy like Jaylen Brown is. And to send him to someone you're going to play however many times in the regular season and more than likely see them in a 7-game series. Again, it's just a head scratcher when you think about the other teams that could have used the Jaylen Brown and they decided to send him to Philly. I just didn't really like that. I've also been seeing debates, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Alex. Did Boston trade the right guy? A lot of people are saying that they should have looked into what Jason Tatum was worth instead of Jaylen Brown after the year Brown just had. And my quick take on this is that they did trade the right guy because in my heart, I believe Jason Tatum is the better player. I know coming off the Achilles, that might scare some people, but I still would trust my franchise more building around Tatum than Brown. So what do you think about that whole debate?
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And more than that, I feel like Tatum is more of an icon than Brown is in terms of just the city of Boston. Tatum has not, if you look off the court, I mean, Tatum and his son Deuce have essentially grown up together in Boston. Tatum arriving in the city at 19 with his 1-year-old son, and now Tatum's approaching his 30s and Deuce is 9-10 years old. I mean, this city and Tatum have grown up together. Jaylen Brown, yeah, he's been there too, but I don't know if he's necessarily been involved because he's been surrounded by trade. This isn't the first time Jaylen Brown has been in trade rumors, especially before Boston won their ring. There was a lot of talk on if Tatum and Brown could win together, and if not, Jaylen Brown had to be the one to go. Brown, he's had his name in trade rumors a lot. He's the one that keeps putting out these statements that make people think, oh, does he even want to be in Boston? Tatum has never done anything like that. He's never shown anything but loyalty to Boston. So with the off-the-court things considered, I do think you absolutely have to keep Tatum. This is a player that showed more loyalty to your franchise. This is the player that I think, like you said, is easier to build around and I think is a better player overall. So I don't think they traded the wrong player. And I don't even think it was necessarily a bad thing that he was traded to Philly. Look what Mikal Bridges was traded from the Nets to the Knicks for. It was like 5 first-round picks or something like that. If the Celtics would have got that from Philly, I would not have any problem with it. I'd be saying it was a win-win for both teams over here. But they didn't. Look at the Walker Kessler trade, which we're going to get to in a little bit. Walker Kessler went for 2 unprotected first-round picks and 2 pick swaps. So you're telling me the difference between Walker Kessler and Jaylen Brown is Paul George? No, that is not the difference at all. And that shows right there how much value the Celtics lost in giving up Jaylen Brown, seeing how much Kessler went for out west.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point you make right there with the Kessler comparison. I do think the Mikal Bridges trade is a little different, though, because Brooklyn wasn't competing at the time they shipped Bridges out. Like, this is Boston, who's actively competing for championships, as well as Philadelphia. And so both these teams are, in your top 5 Eastern Conference contenders right, heading into the year. And Brooklyn, when they traded Bridges to the Knicks, was just nowhere near that. They needed to rebuild, they needed to get off Bridges, and those picks made it easier to do so. So I think that comparison's a little different, just in terms of like rivalry's sake, because the Nets weren't good enough to have a rival the following few years. Whereas Boston and Philly are like, this could be a preview of the Eastern Conference conference finals. Like I think Boston, with the coaching and the culture, right? If they made the Eastern Conference Finals, I would not be surprised. And they could very easily match up with Philly, and we could be watching one of the all-time storylines play out in front of our eyes next season. So, yeah, I think the Kessler comparison, though, I do really like that because, like you said, Paul George is not the difference between Walker Kessler and Jaylen Brown. But speaking of Walker Kessler, I feel like that's a perfect segue to get into this next trade, which honestly is one of my favorite trades that we've had this offseason for both teams, really. So, like you said, the package for Kessler was all picks, 2 firsts and 2 first-round pick swaps for the Utah Jazz big man to go to the Lakers and pair up with the backcourt of Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. Alex, I'll let you start with this one. What are your thoughts? You could start really anywhere. Lakers, Jazz, Kessler, wherever you want.
Yeah, so this trade was just players for picks. It was Kessler for the 2 unprotected and 2 pick swaps. And then Kessler went and signed a 4-year, $190 million contract with the Lakers. So he's going to be in LA long term. He's part of the Lakers' long term future plans. The Lakers needed a rim rolling center to pair with Luka. That much was known. DeAndre Ayton and Jackson Hayes were not getting the job done last year. They needed to upgrade that position. I really do not know if Walker Kessler is an upgrade. Right? You look at guys like Derek Lively and Daniel Gaffer, they play above the rim. They're athletic lob threats. Walker Kessler is not necessarily that. Defensively, he's a very strong positional defender, and that's why it makes a great rim protector. But is he leaping to contest dunks? No. Is he leaping as a lob threat? No. I don't think he's the archetype of center that the Lakers needed. And they completely, not only did they get him, they blew up their entire future to get him. It was 4 first-round picks that they are now not in control of. That is the next half decade of Luka Doncic's career that you are basically saying, yep, we're not going to acquire any more young players in exchange for Walker Kessler. I do not agree with that. I don't think Kessler by himself is worth sacrificing that much. I don't think Kessler is worth a $190 million contract. I don't think he is the type of center to thrive alongside Luka Doncic. I am not a fan of this trade at all for the Lakers, truthfully. I don't think it was a good move on their end. I think they could have gotten a much better center and a much better fit around Doncic. From the Jazz perspective, yes, they are making win-now moves, okay? So this trade does not look like a win-now move. But when somebody is offering you 4 first-round picks for a player you're expecting to be a backup behind Jaren Jackson Jr., who they recently acquired, that's a deal you got to take. That's a deal you cannot pass up by any stretch of imagination. Maybe they were planning on running some Jackson at the 4, Kessler at the 5, right? Maybe that was in their plans. But for 4 first-round picks, much like LaMelo Ball and the Hornets, yeah, that's enough to that's enough to change up your plan. That's enough to change some things around for a player who you might not have considered a part of your long-term future core in Walker Kessler. Yes, this isn't a trade that's going to help them win now, which I think is what the Jazz goal is after tanking for so long and after acquiring Darren Peterson and Jaren Jackson Jr. in the trade deadline and Peterson in the draft. But much like I said with LaMelo Ball, when the value is this good, you can't pass up on it. This is the trade that's only going to help the Jazz going forward. It's going to help their cap space because they don't have to sign Kessler to this massive extension. It's going to help their pick haul, which they've already had a ton of thanks to Danny Ainge's work. And I think it's just going to help clear out the hierarchy within their team and now has Jaren Jackson Jr. cemented at the starting 5. Love the trade for the Jazz. Not as much of a fan of it for the Lakers.
Wow. You and me actually kind of disagree on this one. I love the trade for both teams. Utah, in particular, gets the 4 first, like you said, great value. But also, their front court after trading for Triple J was way too crowded. And I think Walker Kessler, just being the youngest guy and probably I mean, Jaren Jackson's a former depoy, but Walker Kessler on defense is a premier talent in the NBA, in my opinion, for his position. And he probably carried the most value of the three. And I'm including Markkanen, Jackson, and Kessler when I say those three. I don't think their roster was financially structured to hold all three of those guys. So I think Kessler was the guy that you had to move off of just because he carried the most value. And so for that point, I love it for Utah. You can play a couple more guards. Jaren Jackson's never been great as a 5, but he's also never played with a 4 as good as Lauri Markkanen. So I'm interested to see how that works. And then obviously their backcourt is young and exciting with George and Peterson. So I agree. They're in like a semi-win now mode because I still think they're a year away from a chemistry perspective, and some of the other teams in the West are still kind of hanging on from an age standpoint. I think of like a Phoenix. Like I still think Phoenix is going to be just as good as Utah this year because of their experience and their age and how like they played together last year. So they're going to come into the year this year with just more chemistry than Utah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Jaren Jackson didn't play a single game last year for the Jazz. That's correct, right? After he got traded, he was hurt.
He played 3 or 4. Anthony Davis didn't play a game for the Wizards, but okay. Jaren Jackson suited up in a few games for the Jazz, and then tore his shoulder.
And then they shut him. And then they shut him. Yeah, they shut him down. Okay, so Jackson only played a handful of games then. Obviously, Peterson hasn't played a game with these guys. Ace Bailey is only entering his second season. They lose Walker Kessler, so another big man's going to have to replace his minutes off the bench most likely. So Utah, to me, this is, while yes, they are in win now mode for tanking for so long, I still think they're a piece or two away from really being like a championship contender in the West. And then for the Lakers' perspective, you say that Walker Kessler is not your prototypical center that would work with Luka, which I could hear you on that because Walker Kessler is not the most athletic, but I am very keen on Luka's playmaking, and he's going to make Walker Kessler so much better than you think he is. Walker Kessler, to me, could not be in a better situation for his development because this guy is still young. He's still blossoming. He hasn't played... He will never play with a player better than Luka in his entire career. I would be willing to bet. Like, this is it for Walker Kessler. This is the best player he's going to play with. And you could even throw Austin Reeves in that discussion because I would say Austin Reeves is a better playmaker than any of the guards on Utah. So the combination of Luka and Reeves with a Walker Kessler pick and roll, I think, is going to be huge. And offensively, we knew what the Lakers were last year. We know Luka's going to, dominate the pick and roll with whoever. I mean, you could put me in a pick and roll with Luka, and I'd probably average 12 points in the NBA. Like, I'm serious. Like, so I'm not really concerned about a 7-foot guy who can still catch lobs, even though he's not an athletic demon. And the biggest need for the Lakers was defense. This is such an upgrade over DeAndre Ayton on that end of the court that I'm really excited about this trade for the Lakers. Offensively, again, I agree, he's not the prototypical center you would want. But defensively, this seemed like a move that needed to be made because DeAndre Ayton was a traffic cone on defense last year. Couldn't even get a rebound, and he's like 7'2" or whatever. Walker Kessler's going to average probably 15 and 10 easily this year. Probably will average closer to 17 and 13, I would think, are going to be some of his averages this year with tack on a couple of blocks, right? He's going to have a block and a half to 2 blocks a game on average. So I'm really excited. And I even wrote down on my notes that Walker Kessler, to me, might be a borderline all-star in the next 2 seasons.
Wow.
Like, I really think Luka is going to make this guy look amazing. That's my hot take of the summer. Walker Kessler, circle his name now. When we predict all-star rosters, whenever we do that at the beginning of the season, midway, whatever, Walker Kessler will be an honorable mention for me. That's my opinion of him this year. I don't know if he's going to make the all-star roster, but he will be an honorable mention for me come all-star games because of how he's going to impact the game for the Lakers on both ends of the court. So for that reason, I love this trade for the Lakers. I'm that high on Kessler. I think he's really good.
Walker Kessler is coming off an injury that limited him to 5 games last year.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware. But I think the Lakers know more than we do because you don't give up 4 first-round picks for a guy that's not going to play.
The year before that, he averaged 11.1 points per game in a starting role for a tanking Utah Jazz team, putting up 30 minutes a game. I mean, that I think is his offensive ceiling. Luka can maybe extract a little bit more out of him with his pick and roll prowess, but 17 points a game from Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler has the same offensive bag as Rudy Gobert. I think those two players are very, very comparable at this stage in their careers. Kessler, I think, is a young Rudy Gobert. Defensively, he's going to help you out a lot in certain areas. Kessler is a great rim protector, right? Don't ask him to switch onto a 3 or 2 or 1 because he will get blown by and cooked every single time. He doesn't offer the versatility that some of the other fives in the league do that truly make their defenses a threat. It's why the Jazz had to give up Gobert because as good as he was defensively, you can scheme around that in the playoffs. You can exploit that weakness come playoff time. The Timberwolves have learned that the hard way for the past few years now as well. You can scheme around Rudy Gobert. You can plan around him. And I think Walker Kessler has those same exact weaknesses. Yes, he's a smart defender. He will help the Lakers out on that end in the regular season. But come playoff time, what happens when they play a team that team decides to go small and they decide to go 5 out, they decide to play 5 shooters? Kessler is going to get ran off the floor. He will not be able to stay on, much like Rudy Gobert with the Jazz. And to trade 4 first-round picks and pay that kind of player $190 million, it's the type of move that will get you into playoffs, right? It's the type of move that'll help them in the regular season, get them to that 50-win barrier. But it's also the type of move that come playoff time, I think it's only going to hurt them. And that's why I think they could have done much better than Kessler in finding a player that isn't as easily schemable, I think I should say, come playoff time. It's not that Kessler is a bad player or a bad defender. It's just that I don't think he's the type of center that's going to thrive alongside Luka Doncic.
Yeah, I think he's skilled enough to thrive with a guy as good as Luka. That's just my opinion on that. And to your point about the playoff matchups and shooting, I would just ask yourself, of the 3 teams that finished above the Lakers in the standings last year, Thunder, Spurs, Nuggets, which one of them is taking their starting centers off the court to go 5 out?
Well, neither. The Spurs can go 5 out with Wemby. The Nuggets can with Jokic.
But they're not taking Jokic or Wemby off for a guy that can blow by Kessler, right? I mean, we saw what Gobert just did to Jokic. We saw what he just so. Walker Kessler to me is such an upgrade over DeAndre Ayton that it's not funny, and he's not going to be forced to guard a Devin Vassell because the Spurs won't take Wemby off the court. The Thunder are not taking Chet Holmgren or Isaiah Hartenstein. One of them will be on the court at all times. The Nuggets will have Jokic or another big on the court, presumably at all times. So yes, when you mentioned the Rockets are going to have Şengün or Steven Adams on the court at all times. The small ball lineups, yes, I understand what you're saying, but nobody's going to run 2 guards and 3 wings out there against the Lakers because that pick and roll with Luka and whoever is going to kill you because the center rolling to the rim is 6 inches taller than everyone else on the court. So playoff matchups aside, I think of the teams, again, that finished above the Lakers, because the Lakers, to me, are better on paper already this year than they were last year. The 17 points per game might be a little high on my end, but you got to think of LeBron is gone. Rui Hachimura is gone, right? Those shots are opening up for other players. And Walker Kessler is still young. While I love the Rudy Gobert comparison, he still has time to develop into something better than Rudy Gobert offensively. And Rudy Gobert gets a lot of hate because he's clumsy and he plays weird. But if he was given the opportunity to play with Luka Doncic, I think we'd be talking about Rudy Gobert completely differently. And I'm more high on Luka as the perennial point guard in this league than I am Walker Kessler's individual offensive skill set. And I think when you combine the two, Kessler is going to be a lot better than people give him credit for because of the situation he's in. It's very similar to a quarterback in the NFL that sucks. Like, take Sam Darnold on the Jets. Sucks. Worst quarterback in the league. Goes to Carolina. Sucks. Bottom 5 quarterback in the league. Goes to Seattle with a winning culture and winning players around him. And Sam Darnold is now talked about completely differently for the rest of his life. That, to me, is similar to how I'm viewing the Walker Kessler situation. He was in a dumpster fire in Utah. And now he goes to a top 3 franchise in NBA history with a top 5 guard in the league to feed him lobs and easy buckets. So that's my stance on it. Yes, Walker Kessler as the player individually is not as exciting as some of the other centers they could have got, which is where I want to turn to you here. You keep saying that he wasn't the best option for the Lakers. Who are some of the other realistic options you think they could have gotten that you would prefer over Walker Kessler from a team fit perspective? Because that seems to be where your hesitations are coming from.
My hesitations are coming from where the Lakers gave up. Not that they could have gotten someone better. There's not a center off the top of my head that I can name that would have been better than Walker Kessler. It's trading 4 first-round picks. It's mortgaging your entire future on this Luka and Walker Kessler core. Because if something doesn't work out within this, you have no room to upgrade. You have no room to improve anymore because you just mortgaged your whole future. And you gave up so much cap space giving Walker Kessler a max deal. You now have Luka, Austin Reeves, and Walker Kessler as your 3 max players. That is the trio that is supposed to lead you to a championship. Do you think that's a championship level trio? I personally do not. That's what I have the issue with on the Lakers' behalf. How much they gave up to make this happen. Because this is not going to win them a championship. It's not even going to get them out of the first round in the West.
Wow. I'm usually the guy on this podcast that's not high on Luka, but like Luka's made the finals with a worse, like Kyrie and Austin Reeves, similar secondary scoring options, and Walker Kessler.
We just compared Kyrie and Austin Reeves.
Yes. At that point in Kyrie's career, he was a secondary scoring option, just like Austin Reeves is now.
Oh my God. I can't believe we just said that. Kyrie and Austin Reeves in the same sentence. Kyrie will forever be leveled beyond the player.
Yeah, in terms of career, but in this point in Austin Reeves' career, when Luka and LeBron were out last year, Austin Reeves was averaging like 44 points per game. He is a walking bucket in the NBA. He is a walking bucket in the NBA, just like Kyrie, and he's in that secondary scoring option. That's very similar roles to that Dallas team that made the finals.
There are a ton of walking buckets in the NBA. What else does Austin Reeves do better
than Kyrie? He's a
what else does he do at least league average?
Playmaking?
Besides scoring.
He's a good passer.
He's not a league average playmaker.
For his position or in the league? Because in the entire league, he's definitely league average or above. But if you're talking about his position, yes, he does. When you play with Luka and LeBron, the ball's not in your hands all the time. But when those guys were out, he was a league average playmaker, just like he was an above average scorer. His offensive talents are incredible.
And we're calling average playmaking and comparing that to Kyrie Irving?
Kyrie's never been he's never been a great playmaker though. Kyrie's never been a great playmaker. He's a great on-ball scorer. That's why he paired so well with the playmaking of LeBron.
Kyrie Irving is levels above the playmaking that Austin Reeves is. Kyrie Irving has 4 seasons in his career averaging above 6 assists per game.
Yes. When he's the primary ball handler. Yes, when he's the primary ball handler. How many times has Austin Reeves played on a team without Luka or LeBron as the primary ball handler? 0. None.
0.
He hasn't had the opportunity, but that doesn't mean his skill set isn't similar.
But Kyrie played with LeBron and got 6 assists. I mean, it's
okay. How many of those years?
The fact that these two are being compared,
he didn't play with Luka though.
Blasphemy.
And LeBron was at the end or in his prime. So I'm just trying to understand. Yes, I'm not saying that Austin Reeves is just as good as Kyrie as a scorer or as an offensive player, but in their roles, comparing the Dallas team that made the finals to this Lakers team, you can pinpoint the exact pieces that are the same roles as the Dallas team. Austin Reeves is in the Kyrie role, and he can flourish in that role. Yes or no? Is that true or false?
Okay, false. Completely false. You know why it's false? Look at the Golden State Warriors. They had Steph, they had Clay, and they had Draymond Green, and they won multiple championships. And then look at what the Atlanta Hawks did. You could put Trae Young as Steph Curry. You put Kevin Herter as Klay Thompson. You can put DeAndre Hunter as Draymond Green. And you know why that didn't work out? Because it's not just about listing players into roles. It's about the talent. And Austin Reeves is nowhere near the level of talent that Kyrie is.
That's
nowhere near.
We were talking about Austin Reeves last year at the beginning of the year as an MVP finalist. Do you remember that? You're going to tell me.
We were also talking about Josh Giddey. It was the first 4 games of the year. We're talking about Josh
yes,
Giddey as an MVP.
So a guy that we were seriously considering in the running for MVP when Luka and LeBron were out.
Not seriously considering him in the running for MVP.
No, I'm not. But I'm saying you can't. Look, we were not trolling when we were talking about Austin Reeves for MVP. You can agree to that, right? We were being dead serious 100%. We believed that he deserved to be in the race at that point in the season. Yes or no?
In the first 4 games of the year, yes. I could point to a lot of 4-game stretches of
yes. So the answer is yes. So if you truly believed that a guy had enough talent to win the league MVP, you're telling me he's not at least comparable to Kyrie.
I do not believe Austin Reeves has anywhere near the amount of talent needed to win league MVP. Let's establish that now. Austin Reeves will never sniff a league MVP throughout his career.
He won't.
He will never touch one.
But Kyrie, you believed he was in the running last year. You believed he was in the running.
I believe Josh Giddey was in the running.
Great.
Chris Middleton has been in the running before. I believe Drew Holiday has been in the running. I believe Paul George has been in the running. I could sit here and list
Paul George,
150 NBA players that have been in the running for MVP in the past. I mean, Paul George had a 4-game stretch last year where he scored 33 out of 4 games. Were you calling him an MVP candidate?
No, but he's been an MVP candidate before.
And you know what that video was labeled? It was labeled overreaction. We were overreacting for that point. It was the first 4 games of the year. We were overreacting calling Austin Reeves an MVP. So if you are sitting here legitimately telling me you believe that Austin Reeves is an MVP conversation.
No, that's not what I'm saying. You're not listening. You're not listening. I'm saying he can flourish in the Kyrie Irving role, and I'm using the fact that we thought he was an MVP caliber player for however long we thought it was last year to justify my point that he can flourish as a number 2 like Kyrie Irving did with Luka. That's what I'm trying to argue.
Once have I ever thought in my life that Austin Reeves was an MVP caliber player. So I have never ever thought that.
Okay.
Luka has never won MVP, and Luka does everything better than Austin Reeves does. Even defensively, Luka is miles better than Austin Reeves.
Okay. But Austin Reeves as the talent, like you keep telling me that he doesn't have the talent, and I'm trying to understand, like, who's more talented as a player? Austin Reeves or, I don't know, let's go with Darius Acuff.
Acuff, 100%.
Yeah, they're the same. Talent-wise, like, they're the same. But Acuff
you are incredibly high on Acuff. You have Acuff
as
your number 1 guard over Darren Peterson. But yet you're saying his talent level
is similar to Austin Reeves.
Whereas we're comparing Darren Peterson to Kobe.
Yeah, Darren Peterson, if he played with Luka Doncic, would have similar stats to Austin Reeves. Austin Reeves has never been given the opportunity to lead a franchise like Acuff and Peterson are being given this year. That's not insane. How many years has Austin Reeves played without Luka or LeBron on his team? That's not an insane point to make. Just because I believe in his potential. Look at Steph Curry and his career with and without KD and tell me his stats didn't take a difference, a hit. It's because there's more mouths to feed on your roster. It's just point blank, period. That doesn't mean Steph Curry's talent went away when he played with KD. So Austin Reeves' talent doesn't go away when he plays with Luka or LeBron. That's my point.
Okay, but what does Austin Reeves do better than Darius Acuff? Has Austin Reeves ever shot better than 40% from 3-point land over the course of the season? He has not. Has he ever shot better than 50? Acuff did at Arkansas. In his 1 year at the college level, he did. So that is already something that
Yes, at the college level, Acuff. Yes,
did.
Acuff at the college level is already leaps and bounds better than Reeves. Reeves didn't make his jump until he came onto the scene in the NBA and proved that he's an all-star caliber guard. Is that not fair?
Reeves is a borderline all-star caliber guard. Last year was the best year he ever had in his career, and he didn't make it. You're telling me that he's going to just suddenly make it this year? I don't think so. He averaged 23 points a game last year and couldn't find an all-star berth because he's not good enough at every other part of the game. His defense is piss poor. He's a bottom 5 defender in the league. He is not a good playmaker. I don't know where this is coming from, but Austin Reeves is not a good playmaker, which is why you have to put him at the 2 and not the 1.
You would never put him at the 1 with Luka on your roster. No matter how good he is, you would never put him at the 1 with Luka on your roster. You would never do that. You would never do that. Like he would.
So what position did Marcus Smart play last year? Remind me.
Like the 3. The 3.
That's LeBron's position.
No, he's the 4. He's the 4. Ayton's at the position. Hachimura came off the bench last year. In the playoffs, their starting 5 was Luka, Reeves, Smart, LeBron, and Ayton, with Hachimura as the 6th man.
Did you just say Luka was a starter in the playoffs? He wasn't. He wasn't.
Yes.
He missed the entire playoffs.
Yeah.
Luka Doncic missed the entire playoffs. He was not available. You're sitting here telling me he's in the starting lineup, and he wasn't. Marcus Smart was the lead 1.
When Luka was hurt. When their roster was healthy.
Look at that.
When their roster was healthy, who was their starting point guard, and what position did Marcus Smart play? Obviously, Smart would play the 1 when Luka's hurt, or the 2. Reeves still brought the ball up. Jokic plays the 5, but when he brings the ball up, is he all of a sudden the 1? Like,
Jokic is a point center. Yes, that is how that works. You don't get a point center name without playing the 1.
Jokic is not a point guard. That's the 1. He's a 5. He's a 5. He's a center. What position does Nikola Jokic play basketball? Center.
He plays a center. The 1 is the why bring your ball up the court. The 1 doesn't mean point guard. The 1 is your lead ball handler. That is Nikola Jokic. That is Jokic.
Okay. The 1, as long as I've ever played basketball in my entire life, the 1 will always be your point guard. The 2 will always be your shooting guard. The 3 will always be your small forward. I know positions are kind of murky in this era of basketball, but Jokic is a center. On the depth chart, he's a center. In his starting lineup, he plays the 5 because he's a center. Is that at all confusing?
No.
Okay, great. Even though he brings the ball up, occasionally he is the center, which would be the 5 on most rosters.
Okay, and yet, as a center, he is the lead playmaker.
Correct.
Austin Reeves will never, ever be that. Even without Luka and LeBron on his team, Austin Reeves will never, ever be that.
And I don't know how you could say that when we haven't seen it. And I know you could say, how could I say that when I've never seen him do it? But that's because I have faith in his talent. And you clearly do not, which is okay. And I think we should switch topics because we have a lot of other trades to talk about. But Austin Reeves can flourish, in my opinion, as the number 2 scorer on a finals level team. I believe that in my heart. And Walker Kessler can serve as a third option, rim running, 2-way center. So, yes, with Luka.
You have said, the words have come out of your mouth this year, the Lakers will not win with Luka Doncic because he's not good enough at defense. True or false?
True. But we also talked about their roster construction. Roster construction.
Is a significantly worse defender than Luka Doncic. Austin Reeves, if Luka is a traffic cone, Austin Reeves is like 2 atoms.
Okay, but did we not see Luka and Kyrie, who are historically a bad defensive duo, make the NBA Finals in the Western Conference.
Yes.
Okay, so why can't they do it again with a good roster built around them? And just, again, Luka and Reeves as the defensive duo.
Because are we really saying the trio of Luka, Kyrie, and Derek Lively, and Luka, Austin Reeves, and Walker Kessler, are we really saying those are the same?
No, but they're comparable and very similar.
So were the Hawks and the Warriors, and Trey Young's Hawks didn't do anything.
No, Kevin Huerter is not comparable to Klay Thompson the way Austin Reeves is comparable to Kyrie Irving. No, he's not. No, he is not.
That is a pretty accurate comparison. What you just said. Kevin Huerter
was
Thompson as Austin Reeves is to Kyrie.
So Kevin Huerter was a borderline all-star shooting guard, a borderline top 3 two-way player in the NBA. Because Austin Reeves, you said, is a borderline all-star guard. So that's what I'm now comparing. And then you compare DeAndre Hunter to Draymond Green, a multiple-time depoy. That's nowhere close. That's nowhere close to Draymond Green's impact. So the Hawks and Warriors comparison makes no sense.
Yes.
None.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. Exactly. It doesn't make any sense. And Kyrie Irving is a 10-time All-Star and an NBA champion. 10-time All-Star.
Yes.
You know how many All-Stars Austin Reeves made? None. I can count on 0 hands. None. He hasn't made an All-Star game because he's not good enough to make an All-Star game at this point in his career. And if he does get good enough to make an All-Star game, it will be as a 14th or 15th man in the West. He will not be an All-Star starter competing for Finals MVPs, competing for All-Star MVPs, competing for championships like Kyrie Irving is. Because Kyrie's strengths in this game are so much better and completely incomparable to Austin Reeves. I frankly cannot even believe this conversation is being had.
Okay. I can hear you on the All-Stars, but also Kyrie's played a lot longer. And again, the voting system for All-Stars is so broken. Austin Reeves was an All-Star last year, in my mind. So
you want to talk about All-NBA then? If you think the All-Star is broken, we can do that too.
Sure. When's the last time Kyrie made All-NBA? Like, since Austin Reeves is in the league, has Kyrie Irving made an All-NBA roster? I'm genuinely asking because I do not know.
No, he has not.
Okay, so since Austin Reeves has joined the league, you can compare their careers from the point Austin Reeves came into the league. You can compare that portion of Kyrie's career, which, including that portion, is the year that Dallas made the finals, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you can compare that portion of his career. Obviously, Cleveland Kyrie is a completely different story. But again, this whole conversation started with me comparing Kyrie as a second option next to Luka in that year with Dallas. That's the Kyrie I'm talking about, not the all-time top 75 list Kyrie Irving. So how many All-NBAs has Kyrie made since Austin Reeves was in the NBA?
0.
How many All-Stars has he made since Austin Reeves came into the league?
2.
Okay, so he's got 2 more All-Stars than Austin Reeves. I believe Austin Reeves was an All-Star last year, but he wasn't. So 2-0 there. Very fair. Just from a overall output standpoint, do you think Kyrie these last few years is comparable to Austin Reeves? Or do you still think Kyrie's leaps and bounds?
Kyrie is significantly better. Not even close. The lowest point total Kyrie has averaged in the last 5 years is 24.7, 25. That being the 2024-25 season. The lowest he has averaged. Austin Reeves' career high is 23. So Kyrie's worst year is equivalent to Austin Reeves' best year. We're not comparing players like that.
Yes.
We're not putting them nearly the same.
Okay, but I hear you there. However, when Austin Reeves' career is like this, heading towards his prime, and Kyrie's is declining, don't you think at some point they will meet and one will pass the other? Or do you not believe in that career?
Austin Reeves is
26.
Austin Reeves is 28. This is his prime. This is the best he's ever going to get athletically. He came into the NBA after 4 years in Oklahoma, which is why it's part of the reason why he went undrafted. He was an older prospect, and his ceiling isn't going to be as high. This breakout that he's had, it's been exceptional. It's been completely unexpected for all of us. However, we are at the point of Austin Reeves' career. He is at his physical peak. He is not going to get any better than he is right now. Yes, he'll still be able to learn and get the intangibles of the NBA and shit like that. His skills might get better. His athleticism will not. And because of that, he will never be as good of this is the best Austin Reeves is ever going to get because of that.
Okay. Sure, I guess. I mean, Jalen Brunson's also like last year. Jalen Brunson wasn't going to get any better athletically, and he just had one of the best seasons of all time. So again, I don't know how athletically that compromises your ability to get better at basketball. I get it to a degree, but there's a lot more things that go into basketball other than athleticism. And Austin Reeves has proven that he can compete at the highest level with guys way more athletic than him. And he, in my opinion, is still on the ascent in his career. How old's Kyrie? Like 32, 33?
32, I believe. Let me double check that.
And he is obviously, after this last ACL injury, he's absolutely at the tail end of his career. I feel like that's
Kyrie's 34.
Yeah, after an ACL injury, like Kyrie is on the downslope. For me. Mm-hmm. So again, like when Kyrie was on the Mavs, and I look at what he was doing next to Luka Doncic, who, by the way, Luka, maybe you could say he was better then, but I still think he's better now than he was then, just because of his experience and his ability to lead a team. He has so much more tools. So again, the duo of Luka and Reeves to me is very comparable to the duo of Luka and Kyrie that made the finals. That's where my confidence is coming from, and clearly you don't think Austin Reeves is that talented to make that duo work.
Austin Reeves is an all-star ceiling at absolute best. That is the best version of Austin Reeves we will ever get. If Austin Reeves make an all-star this year, we will say he has peaked. Kyrie Irving has hit levels beyond that.
Yes, in his prime, true.
And he's still very capable of making an all-star game, even at age 35 after an ACL. His last healthy season, he was still statistically better than Austin Reeves ever was. And Austin Reeves, although he's been in the league a lot less, they are only 6 years apart in terms of age. 6 years apart. So we're talking about Kyrie Irving on the decline. Austin Reeves only has 2 or 3 more years before he's on the decline. So yeah. I think that this is the best we're going to get from him. We're comparing a player who, like you said, is on the decline to a player who you are saying this guy is going to help Luka win championships in LA. The players are putting up the same stats. They're doing the same things. And Kyrie's on the decline.
Yeah, so, okay. The year that Kyrie, I really want to get done with this conversation because I just feel like I'm repeating myself, but the year Kyrie was in Dallas and they made the finals, you don't think Austin Reeves is talented enough to do what Kyrie did that year?
No, definitely not.
Why not? Okay, I guess why not? I don't understand. I'm just not understanding why you don't think he's good enough to do that. You don't have to predict it to happen, but I'm just asking, why don't you think he's good enough to put up those numbers and have that type of success?
Because he's not an efficient scorer. He didn't shoot 50% from the field or 40% from three. He's not an elite playmaker. He didn't average 6 assists a game, which Kyrie Irving has done 4 times in his career, including twice on the Mavericks. I mean, you're asking for reasons. These are reasons.
Did he do that the year they made the finals? 6 assists the year they made the finals.
No, he did not.
Okay, thank you.
5.2.
Again, I'm not trying to compare Kyrie Irving's career to Austin Reeves' career. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to compare the one season that Luka Doncic actually had postseason success with the team built around him and how the Lakers, in my opinion, are trying to copycat that. That's what I'm trying to compare. And we just disagree on Austin Reeves' ceiling, and that's okay. I want to move on because I feel like we're both just repeating ourselves at this point. Where would you like to go now? Ja, Kawhi, LeBron, somewhere else? Where would you like to switch the conversation to?
Let's go to Kawhi because that, I feel like, aside from Jaylen Brown, was the biggest name on the move. And it's a potential homecoming as long as everything with the investigation goes through.
Okay, let's do it. So Kawhi, can you pull up the trade compensation? Because I actually don't know off the dome. I know Brandon Ingram was included in the trade. So Kawhi's heading back to Toronto, in case we didn't say that. Brandon Ingram and Moore is heading to LA. However, the biggest news coming out of this trade is that it's been postponed or withheld due to legal drama surrounding the Los Angeles Clippers. I think we talked about this last offseason with the contract scandals surrounding Kawhi Leonard and the owner of the Clippers doing some shady stuff to sneak Kawhi some extra money on the side outside of the salary cap in order to incentivize Kawhi to stay on the Clippers. That's kind of the long story short there. So that whole scandal has not been resolved and is hence postponing this trade. Let's assume that this trade goes through for argument's sake. And I would say that this is a win for Toronto. Kawhi is a huge upgrade over Brandon Ingram. He just had a career resurgence last year, which I honestly didn't think was possible with his injury history. And the pairing of Kawhi and Scotty Barnes, to me, is just as good as like Giannis and Bam defensively. Like they're going to give opposing wings absolute hell all year from a defensive standpoint. Offensively, I still think there's shooting liabilities in Toronto, which I think will hurt their ceiling come playoffs. But Kawhi absolutely gives this team a chance to win the East, in my opinion. I don't know if I still think I have a couple teams ahead of them. I honestly think they're very comparable to Miami. Like, great defense with a certified number one that can win you a championship. I think I would trust Giannis a little bit more than Kawhi at this point in their careers. But the shooting deficiencies for both teams are kind of like just slow down. Everyone's trying to throw Toronto and Miami in the East favorites, and I'm just trying to tell people that like they need a little bit more. It feels like they're a year away to me, at least. And then for the Clippers, like they're just like so irrelevant. Like I don't know what they're doing. The Paul George Kawhi Leonard experiment just did not work. People were talking about them as like the best team in LA. And while the Lakers weren't anything special, like they never lived up to that hype. While the Lakers had LeBron and AD, they actually won a championship while the Clippers were out there getting Kawhi and Paul George. And then the Lakers make the move of all moves to get Luka. So while Kawhi and Paul George were in LA, they were still somehow the second best team in that city. I think that experiment failed. It blew up on them. And the Clippers now, looking at their roster after the Kawhi trade, are we on tank watch? Yeah, are we on tank watch? Like, this could be the worst team in the league next year after this Kawhi trade. Like, that's kind of after they traded Zubac too to the Pacers. Like, this could be the worst team in the league next year, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, just so we get the Kawhi Leonard trade out, the return that the Clippers got for him was Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 2 unprotected first rounders, a first round pick swap in this upcoming draft in 2027, and 2 second rounders.
That's actually not a bad haul for Kawhi, who's like at the end of his prime. That's actually not bad.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. He went for more than Jaylen Brown did.
Yeah, that's insane. To a opposite conference team, to a team you won't see until you reach the NBA Finals. That's crazy.
Exactly. which is back to our point why we're questioning the Jaylen Brown trade so much. But just to stick on Kawhi, for the Raptors, I completely agree with you. I think the Miami comparison is great. I think these are 2 teams that acquired a number one who can lead you to a championship. I do think the shooting on Miami is more of a problem than it is on Toronto, just because Kawhi himself is still a great shooter at absolute worst. He's still a great three-point shooter, and he's going to fix some of those problems just by his presence being on the team. He's a much more consistent shooter than Brandon Ingram was, at least. And Grady Dick really has not done all that much since being a lottery pick in the NBA. So, love the trade for the Raptors. I agree with you that this doesn't make them the favorites on the East, because I think the Knicks, the Celtics, the Sixers, and maybe even the Pacers are all better teams right now than the Raptors, or at least more established teams in the East. Right? So I do think they're on the tier alongside the Heat. And I don't want to say dark horses, but almost on that second tier of favorites. I think I would throw the Pacers there as well. On the second tier behind those top 3 teams, up for debate. But I agree with you in the sense that they're not in the upper echelon of Eastern Conference contenders alongside the Heat. They are going to need to acquire more depth, and they are going to have to upgrade at the center position. You're not going to win in the playoffs starting 6'7" Colin Murray Boyles or Jakob Poeltl if he's still even on the team anymore. I don't know. So the Raptors' job, I don't think is done. They're going to have to upgrade in a couple more parts, but they have now entered into possible contender status with the acquisition of Kawhi. They were not there before with Scotty Barnes as your number one at this point in his career. So love the trade for Toronto. Plus, I do think Kawhi Leonard never should have left Toronto, and so part of me just like seeing him go back there and hopefully securing some kind of legacy, which he wasn't able to do with the Spurs and the Clippers. From the Clippers' perspective, yeah, this is going to be an awful team. And what's interesting about Tank Watch is that there's no incentive to tank anymore because the bottom three teams now have reduced chances to get higher draft picks in the NBA draft thanks to the new flattened lottery odds. So we're saying Tank Watch, but I mean, what is tanking going to look like now? Like, are we really going to see teams like are the Clippers just not going to have the talent to compete, even though they try? Are they going to try to intentionally lose? I'm very curious as to what that is going to look like with these new flattened lottery odds. But sneaky dark horse for Rookie of the Year is now Keaton Wagler because I think he is now the focal point. Him and Brandon Ingram are going to be the entire offense for the Clippers in this coming year. So
Yeah,
Keaton Wagler is someone to keep an eye on.
I think the new tanking rules are just going to make it easier for the actually bad teams to get the top players. And like we're talking about, this roster for the Clippers is atrocious. Like, it's not good. You have Garland and Wagler and Ingram, but the front court, I mean, they just lost John Collins too, who signed with Detroit in free agency. That's a great signing for Detroit. So their front court went from John Collins and Zubac to Brook Lopez and whoever you want to throw in at the starting four. Like, and their bench, I don't even know what their bench looks like right now, but it's probably not good. Ty Lue is probably the focal point. Like, Ty Lue's the best thing going for the Clippers right now. And who knows how long he'll be coaching them. So I don't think the Clippers are going to have to tank. I just think they're going to be bad enough to get a top pick. And I don't know how the new rules will actually affect their regular season play. Like, and maybe they could sneak into the play-in. Like, are they like the Dallas of last year? Like, they're competitive and they win some games, but ultimately they're on the outside looking in. I don't know. But no, this team's ceiling is the play-in now. And I think it would benefit them not to tank, but just give the keys to Wagler and just see what happens. See who you can, identify his skills early so you know the best players to pair with him down the road and move on from here. Ultimately, going back to your Raptors point, I do think the Pacers, Sixers, Celtics, Knicks are all better teams. I look at the Raptors and the Heat very similar to how Orlando was last year. But obviously you have Giannis and Kawhi to take them a little bit farther. But the shooting of Orlando is kind of what I'm looking at from Miami and Toronto right now, where it's just not good enough. And that will need to be addressed as the offseason continues.
Yeah, going back to your Kawhi and Paul George point, that is arguably one of the most disappointing tenures for any franchise in the history of the NBA, based on how little they accomplished with the Clippers. In 2019, when Kawhi signed with the Clippers and they made that huge trade for Paul George, I really thought that George and Kawhi were about to form one of the most iconic duos in NBA history. I firmly believe that. I believed in the talent of both players. I believed in Doc Rivers as a coach. I thought this Clippers team was about to win their first ring, and not only that, win multiple rings. And not only did they not win a championship, they didn't even make it to the finals. They only made one Western Conference final. They had more playoffs where Kawhi Leonard was injured than conference finals appearances. It was so underwhelming in every single possible way for the Clippers. And then you look at what they gave up. Not just the picks, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is now a two-time MVP and going to lead the Thunder to at least championship contention for the next decade. If the Clippers had just kept Shai, they would be a better team than they are even last year. Even at the height of the Kawhi Paul George era, keeping Shai might have been the better move, and it might have made them a better team. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, and we're saying all this, but it's just incredible how much of a letdown that trade was for Clippers fan and how much it set that franchise back. Because for the next, I'm going to say at least 3 years, the Clippers are not going to sniff the playoffs. The play-in is their absolute ceiling. The 9 or 10 seed is their absolute ceiling, like you said. They're not going to sniff the playoffs in the Western Conference for the
No.
next 3 years at least.
And
Insane the downfall they went on.
I think trade deadline watch next year, I think Garland and Ingram are two names to keep an eye on next trade season. After the trade for Kawhi, I don't know why you would Brandon Ingram in particular because he's older than Garland, but I don't know why you would keep either of them with Wagler kind of just, ready to take over. I think contending teams would really enjoy a player the caliber of Brandon Ingram, and I think teams with maybe an injury to a guard or a lack of playmaking could really use a Darius Garland for the home stretch. So that's something to keep an eye on as the season unfolds as well.
Agreed. They are absolutely going to be sellers by the time the deadline comes. This is a new era of Clippers basketball we're entering, but we're also not going to see the dividends of this new era for quite some time, a few years down the road. It's not even like the Clippers have a ton of draft stock to mess around with and try and get a ton of young talent. I mean, they traded most of their assets away. They're only now just able to draft normally again. And they still weren't even drafting normally. The only reason they had a first-round pick is because they traded with the Pacers. They didn't have their own first-round pick this year. I think next year is the first year that they're going to have their own first-round pick back from the Oklahoma City Thunder as a result of that trade. So the Clippers are finally now entering into a point where they can rebuild properly. It'll be interesting to see what they do, and if they do become sellers at the deadline, which I agree with you. I think that is the best move for them for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move to another trade, probably our final trade we'll talk about, and that is Ja Morant to Portland. One of the most just like random trades maybe of all time. Ja Morant, knowing he was going to leave Memphis, but I don't think anyone even like predicted him going to Portland. And I remember texting you about it. We had a nice little debate. This was before the Jaylen Brown trade, talking about Portland and what they should do. And our first reaction was the amount of guards on this team, they're going to flip somebody to get Jaylen Brown. That was our initial reaction to this trade. We thought it would be Drew Holiday reuniting with the Celtics, which made so much sense when I said it out loud. And obviously that did not happen because Brown is now on the Sixers. But my initial thoughts on this Portland trade are there are so many mouths to feed from a backcourt perspective that I'm scared about this team just from a fit perspective. On paper, the talent is there to compete in the West, to win a playoff series, I think is probably where I have them pegged at right now. They could upset a team that's not taking them seriously because of the combination of Ja Morant and Damian Lillard has had some playoff success. Denny Avdia had a decent series last year against the Spurs in his playoff debut, and Drew Holiday is a winner wherever he goes. So that backcourt, to me, has enough experience and enough skill to win a playoff series. The problem is who the hell is going to sit on the bench and who the hell is not going to take, 18 to 20 shots. The easy answer is Drew Holiday, but you're sacrificing so much of your defense with Drew Holiday on the bench that I don't know if that's the best option either. So to me, from a team scheme, you have four, not ball dominant, because again, I don't want to throw Drew Holiday on there, but you have four guards that need to be on the court to have success. I think that's fair to say. And three of the four, Avdia, Lillard, and Morant, in my opinion, need the ball to be at their best. So this is going to be an interesting team to watch this year. I think Donovan Clingan is now like the X factor for this team because he needs to be just I don't know what his role is for this team anymore. I don't think he's a spacer, but because the guards are going to take so many shots that I think he just needs to embrace like a Clint Capella type role. Like just go, or a Kevon Looney role. Just crash the glass, get 10 to 12 points on putbacks, make your free throws when you get fouled, and play elite defense. So I'm interested to see how Clingan works. Alex, if you could read the trade details on Ja, but I'm a little skeptical on this trade. And then for Memphis, obviously, quick thoughts. This was a trade that absolutely had to happen. Everybody knew Ja was on his way out. It was just a matter of when, not if. And I don't even remember the compensation. So if you could read that off real quick, that'd be splendid.
Yeah, there were no draft picks at all in this trade. Ja was traded to the Blazers in return for Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray. That was it. It was Ja for two players. Um, so probably not the compensation that one would expect from a former All NBA guard talent, but that just goes to show how little teams value Ja throughout the year. And he's been in trade rumors all year. I think the return that Memphis got showed that they had a lot of difficulty finding a partner for him and getting assets that they thought was fair. I mean, no picks for a former All NBA guard was kind of crazy, but Ja was just undesirable around the league because of his off the court issues. Um, I completely agree with you. We talked about this a little bit, but Portland's backcourt is completely cluttered, and I don't even consider Avdi a guard. I think he's more of a small forward. But they still have the two veterans, Ja and Damian Lillard, and the two young guys, Shaden Sharp and Scoot Henderson. And that's not even accounting for Drew Holiday, who I think has to be moved at this point because you have five. You won't even have room for five guards. You're already cluttered with four guards. But this is a tough situation for Portland. I mean, it's a problem that you want to have. You would rather have this issue than not have this issue. But if you're Portland, what do you prioritize? Do you want to try and win now and to start your bets? Or do you still prioritize the development of your young guys and play Scoot and Shaden? If that's the case, are you really going to be able to convince the two vets, Dame and Ja, to take reduced roles and or come off the bench? Damian Lillard, I feel like, is likely. He's a Portland legend. I feel like he'll do whatever it takes. Ja, I'm a little more skeptical on. I don't know if he'll be willing to take a role like that. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Portland prioritizes, winning or development within their culture. Because Denny Avdia is an all-star already. I think he could even take another leap and become a borderline All-NBA talent. Um, it, I just don't know if this is a win. It's not a team that's going to win now. Like acquiring Ja Morant did not make this team a championship contender. I don't even know if it necessarily improved the Blazers from their team last year. Um, it, it's just a very confusing trade all around. Like you led with one of the more out of the blue trades that came. It, it's just the team pairing doesn't make sense with the amount of guards the Blazers have. There's no room for Ja Morant to play.
Yeah.
I mean, Shaden has to play over him. Scoot Henderson has to play over him. Are you really going to give up on the third overall pick that you took 3 years ago? Or are you going to give up on your franchise icon, Damian Lillard? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
it's tough.
it doesn't. I don't know how Ja slots into this team. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think
very interesting move from the Blazers.
I think Avdia has to stay. Obviously, he's the young cornerstone that's still developing at a high level. I would keep Holiday personally, just because of his attributes on off the court, in the locker room, on both ends of the court. I think Holiday has to stay, and I feel like Ja has to stay because you just traded for him. So to me, it's, do you prioritize Sharp and Henderson? Do you try and move those two to win now, or do you move off Dame and prioritize the rebuild that is just in a, you've accelerated the rebuild with the Ja Morant trade essentially, but you're still, a year or two away with this roster if you move off a Dame. And personally, I know he's a Portland legend, which makes it extremely difficult, but with the Achilles injury that he suffered and with his age and Portland's current overall age of their roster, I feel like Dame is the odd one out to me. That sounds so bad to say out loud because he's a top 75 player, the best player
I agree.
the best player in Portland Trailblazers history. But based on my, just my viewpoint on their trajectory and what they did last year with the roster without Dame, like Dame didn't play a game last year, and they made it out of the play-in. Nobody thought they would make it to the playoffs, and they took the Western Conference champs in a hard-fought series in the first round. Like, they competed to a degree. So I don't know where Dame fits. Dame, to me, is just, he's the odd one out. Because I don't think you can convince him to sit on the bench. And I don't think it's worth your while to keep Scoot and Shaden Sharp on your bench either. So you either trade those pieces for a forward or a big to go alongside Klingon for depth and Avdia, because Avdia, like you said, you don't see him as a guard. Even though he handles the ball a lot, his stature is very guard heavy, and I just think of his matchup with the Spurs, he was being guarded by Stephon Castle, who guards a lot of top-tier guards in the playoffs. That's kind of where my mind goes. So Avdia, to me, plays like a guard, has a similar stature to a guard, even though he does play small forward for them. I think with this roster, he's going to have to play more. He might play the 4 this year, which seems like a nightmare for defensive purposes. To have Avdia as your 4, like rebounding might be an issue there, but yeah, a weird trade. I think Ja would have made a lot of sense. Again, hindsight's 2020, but like, what if Ja had been shipped to Boston for Jaylen Brown, and then in a 3-team trade, right? Like Brown goes to Portland, Memphis gets the scraps, and Ja goes to Boston, right? Like that would have made so much sense in my head. But hindsight's obviously 2020, and that would have avoided the Celtics sending Brown to their division rival, which is I still can't get that out of my head. So,
yeah, it's been definitely a weird week of NBA news with Jaylen Brown and John Morant and LaMelo Ball for what it's worth. I agree with you that Dame seemed like the odd one out. If we remove names, like if this was player A, player B, player C, player D, player E, I do think that Damian Lillard's player would be the odd one out. The issue is, like you said, he is the franchise icon. He is the best player in their history, and they just reacquired him last season, knowing that he was going to miss all of last year.
Yeah.
So I don't think they were just going to pick him up last year if they didn't have a long-term plan for him. I do think they have some kind of they have something they want to do with Damian Lillard and Denny Avdia, or they wouldn't have even gotten him to begin with. But like you said, he has to be the odd one out, or if that's not the case, it's going to be one of the young guys that have to get moved, either Scoot or Shaedon Sharpe. Because for young guys, if you're not playing them, you have to trade them. They have no purpose sitting on the bench. Look at the Warriors with Kuminga. I'm sure you're very aware of that point. You have to do something with your young guys. You can't just let them sit on the bench for years and years and waste their career away.
Absolutely.
Because then you lose their value. So
here's
it's going to be very interesting to see what Portland does this year. But I agree with you in the fact that Damian Lillard is the odd one out.
Here's something. Yeah, no worries. Here's something that I just thought of that actually is very intriguing. Because they gave up so little to get Ja, is there a world where they package him with picks to make another move? Like, do they just flip Ja to get someone similar of like an Andrew Wiggins or a John Collins or a Tobias, like someone of that mold that would fit their roster so much better and help them win now, next to Dame, Scoot, Avdia, Holiday, etc.
It would have to be months down the road because of the recently traded restriction. Ja can't be traded again for a certain amount of time. I think it's 2 months. It could be 3 months. Correct me if I'm wrong. But there's a certain amount of time that Ja can't be restricted for. So that would come during the season. That's after we have seen a little bit of whatever experiment that Portland has out there right now. So, I think we'll have a clearer picture once we see their starting lineup on game 1, what they want to prioritize. But if Ja is going to be traded, that is going to be when the season actually is.
I can see it now. Ja to the Clippers in some sort of package for Brandon Ingram coming to Portland. I can literally see that in my mind right now. Maybe plausible. And maybe in some form of a 3-way. Maybe a 3-way trade. If you don't want to mock him to the Clippers, but I can see it now. Like someone of that mold, a big wing who can score off the ball. That's kind of what I think they need. Kind of sounds like the exact mold of Jaylen Brown, but that's neither here nor there.
All right, let's move on to some free agency news, which really I just want to talk about LeBron James because he is the biggest name in free agency right now. He has been since day one. And there's been a lot of rumors about teams. Your Warriors have been in it. The Timberwolves have been in it. But his top 3 teams, I don't know if it's final 3, but his top 3 are all in the Eastern Conference, with those teams being the Heat, the Cavaliers, and the Sixers. The Heat, who just acquired Giannis, and the Sixers, who just acquired Jaylen Brown. And for the record, LeBron has said he is willing to take a vet minimum if it gets him on a contender. So salary is not an issue for any of these three teams. So with that being said, which of those three teams named do you think LeBron would best fit with?
Great question. I would say the Cavs, just because he fits everything they don't have from a leadership standpoint and a just overall like winner mentality standpoint. The Heat already have Giannis. They already have the culture of Spoelstra. So adding a, this is gonna sound bad, but a washed version of LeBron, right? What does that add?
True.
What does that add from a championship chasing standpoint? Adds a little depth, sure, but I feel like there are better pieces for Miami to chase with their culture than a 42-year-old LeBron James on a vet minimum. Go to Philly. Their future is solely based on the backcourt of Maxey and Edgecombe and the dominant wing play of Jaylen Brown. You've got the head coach, believe, is Nick Nurse, who won a championship in Toronto. Jaylen Brown, like you already mentioned, is a former Finals MVP. So they have experience to win a championship on that roster as well. So I think the best fit for LeBron to use all of his skill sets, and his best skill at this age is his mind. And I think Cleveland needs it the most, and I think it would fit him the most as well, because Harden and Mitchell have been playoff disappointments for most of their careers. Mobley and Allen, unfortunately, are just not the best front court duo. I think they're a little overrated as a duo when it comes to the playoffs because of Allen's limited skill set on offense and Mobley's inability to develop at the rate that we thought he would. So I think them as a duo in the playoffs would significantly benefit from a guy like LeBron, who his IQ and his ball movement and his passing would give them even easier shots, right? It would allow Donovan Mitchell, who just signed a massive extension with Cleveland, to be the bona fide number one scorer. And James Harden all of a sudden is looking at, in my opinion, a number 3 role. Are we looking at a number 3 for Harden? I don't know. So that's my opinion on it. Obviously, as a Warriors fan, I still want LeBron to come to the Warriors. I would love to get to see him play with Steph. That would be awesome. But in terms of team fit, I just think LeBron to the Cavs makes so much sense in my head. And I don't know if he would get them over that postseason hump. But he, in my opinion, if you were to say what's one player available right now today, right, that could realistically join Cleveland's Big Four and get them over that hump, I feel like LeBron is at the top of that list. I feel like there's no one better for Cleveland than LeBron and what he would bring to that locker room, what he would bring to that city, what he would bring to that team. So I think LeBron to the Cavs makes the most sense in my head. It's a homecoming, obviously, and that would be my opinion of the LeBron sweepstakes right now. I would say Cleveland to me is the favorite in terms of team fit. What do you think?
Yeah, I think 41-year-old LeBron James is still the best overall player that you can get right now, which is kind of insane to say a 41-year-old LeBron is the best free agent. But I still think at this point he can be a second or third option on a championship-winning team.
Absolutely.
Miami, I agree with you. I don't think that necessarily fits because I think Giannis at this point can do most of the things that LeBron would have been responsible for in terms of scoring, playmaking, and leading a team to a championship. He has those experience and the intangibles required for Miami to succeed there. So to me, it comes down between Cleveland and Philly. And while I hear you on Cleveland, I hear how he would fit there. I think James Harden is essentially the primary playmaker for that team. He's serving in a pass-first role, whereas Donovan Mitchell is in the score-first role. When I look at Philly, I think they are missing that pass-first player. I think Maxey and Jaylen Brown are elite scorers in their own right. I think Edgecombe can become an elite scorer, but at this stage, with the players surrounding him, he's a 3-and-D guy at best. None of those three are exactly playmakers. Now, Joel Embiid did show flashes of playmaking, but I do think it's kind of a very risky. You're banking your future on something not very bankable by saying Joel Embiid is going to be healthy. At this point in his career, you can't expect that. So you do need a guy who is willing to pass, who wants to get his teammates involved as much as possible because he has elite scoring teammates. I think LeBron will be perfect in that. I agree with you. I think his best power right now is his mind. And I think his mind, he still has the ability to manipulate defenses because of that. He has seen anything and everything, any kind of defensive coverage that has existed in basketball history, LeBron has seen, and he knows how to beat it. And I think that's going to be very helpful for getting two elite scorers in Maxey and Jaylen Brown, the best look that they have ever had in their careers. I think LeBron fits that team perfectly because of the skills that they are lacking. Whereas I think James Harden with the Cavaliers, he's not LeBron James, but his playmaking is comparable to that. So I think Philly is the best fit for LeBron. And I think Philly will become the favorites in the Eastern Conference if they're able to land LeBron James. I think that was the most talented starting five in the East. Maxey, Edgecombe, LeBron, Jaylen Brown, and healthy Embiid, well, maybe.
Yeah.
That is a loaded starting five. That is a vaunted starting five. I don't know who in the East is competing with that.
The Knicks. But
Touche.
But I agree with you. On paper, that would be the vaunted starting lineup in the East. I think the continuity of the Knicks is so good, and even Indiana too, with Halliburton, Siakam, Zubac, and Nembhard, and whatever three they want to put out there. Like, if Indiana wasn't a small market, LeBron to the Pacers makes so much sense too. Like, if Indiana wasn't the smallest market known to mankind, that would make so much sense too, based on the postseason success they had the year before. I'm still holding out hope. Excuse me, as a Warriors fan, that they sign him. But it's looking bleak. It's looking bleak. I know Steph Curry was asked about it at this golf tournament a couple days ago, and he said his pitch to LeBron was, "There's great golf in the Bay," which is true. There is great golf in the Bay. But unfortunately,
it's a retirement home.
Yeah, the oldest team in the league adding the oldest player. But like you said, he is the best free agent available at this point. Also, another free agent that was just made available. I just wanted to touch on this because the Warriors are targeting him. DeMar DeRozan was just waived by the Sacramento Kings. I don't know if you're high on DeRozan, but I do think he could be a nice third, fourth option on maybe a contender, because he is still a bucket at this age, and he could, like, you could convince me if DeMar DeRozan was willing to take a six-man role that he could win Six-Man of the Year this year. Like, you could convince me of that. Like, you could convince me that would happen on a championship team. And, like, if he were to go to Indiana and be their sixth man, he's probably the Six-Man of the Year favorite to me, averaging, like, 18 off the bench on, like, stupid numbers when Halliburton and Siakam need rest and DeRozan comes in and drops 18 in 22 minutes or whatever. Like, I could see that happening too. So I wanted to mention that because the Warriors are targeting DeRozan if they cannot land LeBron, I'm pretty sure.
DeRozan as a sixth man, I don't think there is a team that would exactly decline that. Every team could use more bench depth, right? Every team could use more scoring off the bench. And if that is a role that DeMar DeRozan is willing to take, I think he will be a highly desirable free agent in the next few days. Indiana is, I like that fit a lot, but I really think that he could be a six-man of the year contender on any team in the league. He's an absolute bucket for mid-range still. He can still get you 15 to 20 points a night. Does he do much else other than that? Not at this point in his career, no. But the six-man of the year has been an award that highly favors scoring and highly favors guys that can come off the bench and get you 20 to 30 points a night. And DeMar DeRozan fits that prototype, even still, as in his age, 34, 35 year, he still fits that mold of an absolute bucket. So I think every team in the league could use someone like DeMar DeRozan off the bench. Now, if he needs to be a starter, that changes a lot, and he suddenly becomes maybe an untouchable free agent, maybe someone like Russell Westbrook, who doesn't get signed until a few days before the start of the season. So, something to keep an eye on there. But if DeRozan would be great on the Warriors as a six-man, as he would on any team in the league, I believe.
Yeah, I think he would just have to be on a semi-contending team to be a good six-man of the year candidate, because obviously if he's on a trash team like Sacramento, he won't be coming off the bench. So I just think any team that requires bench depth, and just a lack. Like, you know what team actually would freaking oh my goodness, Detroit. Go sign DeMar DeRozan right now and get him to come off your bench. I know you just drafted a Corey who's kind of your sixth man now, but DeRozan and Okori off the bench to spell Cade and Duncan Robinson, to me, their offense will no longer be a liability when Cade Cunningham's off the court, I guess. And I think that fit makes a lot of sense to me. Doesn't really help their 3-point woes, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I gotta disagree there. 3-point shooting is Detroit's biggest weakness more than offense. Cade Cunningham is really capable of doing everything offensively by himself. He can provide the inside scoring, the mid-range scoring, the 3-point scoring, the playmaking. He is that good. He is an offensive hub, and he can do everything. But what he can't do is get 4 guys that can space the floor around him and give him that space to operate. That is what Detroit needs right now. They need one role guy in Jaylen Duren and 3 shooters. And then Cade will be able to do whatever he wants on the basketball court. DeMar DeRozan does not exactly fit any of those archetypes. He has never been an elite 3-point scorer in his career. He has been a mid-range bread and butter for his entire 12-year career up to this point. So I do think I don't think he would necessarily fit with what Detroit needs at the current moment. Now, like you said, when Cade comes off the court and DeMar comes on, he will likely have the offense running through him. He will be able to get a couple of good mid-range looks. But I don't think he will be able to play DeMar and Cade Cunningham on the court together and have that work out. And I do think that's what Detroit needs to focus on acquiring right now, guys that fit better alongside Cade Cunningham than what they currently have.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good point. Anything else you want to talk about before we get into the end segment? That was all the guys I wanted to touch on.
Now, LeBron's really the only major free agency signing the really only major free agent. There's been other guys, role players moving hand. I know the Lakers made a couple of big, not big signings, but a bunch of signings. They signed Sandro Mamukelashvili. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. Colin Sexton and someone else, right? The Clippers signed Rui Hachimura. So there are guys moving around, but none of them have the star power and ability to change a franchise like LeBron does. So I feel like we've covered him good. I'm ready to move on to the end segment.
Let's get into it. Alex has something new and interesting and low-key difficult for me today, so let's get into it.
Yeah, so the FIBA World Cup qualifiers are going on for the World Cup basketball that is going to be taking place next year. Since the FIFA World Cup for soccer is going on right now, I felt it was applicable to do something internationally related. And if you look at the rosters, you got guys like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. The league MVP is playing right now for Canada. Edgecombe, we've talked a lot about, is playing for the Bahamas right now. So you would think the U.S. has some capable players on their team, right? You would think. Today, Max is going to blind rank Team USA's World Cup qualifying roster. And I have warned him before this episode started, and I'm going to warn you all now. This is not the caliber of players you are thinking of. This is the official Team USA roster. And I think these names are going to be very surprising to you. That's all I'll say. Max, are you ready? This is going to be a challenge for you.
Yeah. 7 names, correct? Just want to clarify that.
7 names. Because honestly, the other 8 I have never heard of in my life.
All right, so great. All right.
We're going with the 7 names that I have at one point heard of.
Yep.
So we will start off with former Virginia University legend, Kyle Guy.
Dog. Absolute college legend. Like, one of Virginia basketball's best players all time, probably. What a demon. That guy's 3-point shooting was lethal in college, had a terrible NBA career. Who cares? I honestly don't know how many guys were going to get better than Kyle Guy. I'm putting him at 3. That feels really good to start with a Kyle Guy at 3.
Kyle Guy at 3. Never would I ever have thought we would have a ranking where Kyle Guy is at 3rd position.
Hey, we need a shooter. We need a shooter.
Here we are. Team USA represent Kyle Guy at 3. Next up, we have former LSU legend, Javonte Smart.
Yeah, no. See, like Kyle Guy to me, way better than Javonte Smart, especially in their college careers. I like Javonte Smart at like a 6. I don't know much about him. He strikes me. This might be last name bias, but he strikes me as a defensive guy. Do you know anything about this guy that could help my case at 6? Because he's not as exciting as Kyle Guy. Like he's just not as
He
exciting.
played at LSU. That's about all I know. In his most recent game for Team USA, he shot 1 of 8 from the field and 1 of 7 from 3-pointer.
Yep.
So his strengths are definitely not offensively.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'll give it to you there, defensive guy.
Yep, 6th. Get him down. We need shooters. That's why Kyle Guy's up on the list. That's right. That's right.
All right, Javonte Smart at number 3. All right, next up, we have former Milwaukee Bucks legend, Marjon Beauchamp.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure we did an episode like last year or 2 years ago where I said he could break out for the Bucks. I
He's
dead
not
ass.
even on the team anymore.
Yeah. We're gonna throw him at. Well, yeah. I don't even think is he even in the NBA anymore. Or is he in the G League?
No, he's not on the NBA.
I still think
He's
we're gonna
a
get
G League
two.
player.
We're gonna get 2 guys worse than Beauchamp. Kyle Guy really looking like a number 2 option right now. We're gonna put Beauchamp at 4, right behind Guy. That feels okay.
Marjon Beauchamp up at number 4.
I need some heater
All right,
bangers
next.
here for 1 and 2. I need some super heat right here.
Next up on the list, we have the missed layup god himself, Brandon Knight.
Yeah, he's the best player on this team by far. Number 1. He's got to be the best player on this team by far. I know he missed layups at crucial point in some games, and that's like a meme. He was also the guy that got absolutely obliterated by DeAndre Jordan in Lob City. But he had a lengthy NBA career, and I have no doubt this is the best guy on this team. There's no way the offense does not run through Brandon Knight in the big year of 2026. Number 1, right there.
When is the last time you heard the name Brandon Knight?
Probably the last time I watched Lob City highlights. So, like, years ago. Years.
Brandon Knight, representing Team USA, and Max, right now, he is the number 1 player on, or I guess he's slotted in at number 1, the number 1 player on Max's Team USA.
Facts.
Line
How much?
ranking.
What's he averaging? What's he averaging on Team USA? Does it say? Do you have that pulled up?
I don't have the averages pulled up, but in his most recent game, he dropped 14 points on 5 of 8 shooting.
Yep.
Solid.
That's
against Nicaragua.
It's definitely the best guy I've named so far. So let's go.
Oh my god. Team USA, if I haven't said it enough, this is the official roster. Next up, player number 5 out of 7. Former Denver Nuggets legend, Torrey Craig.
Oh my God, Torrey Craig. Honestly, kind of a jack of all trades kind of guy. I remember him in some of Denver's playoff runs. He actually was like not bad. He's a similar mold to like what they have now in Peyton Watson, I feel like. Honestly, he's going in at number 2. I feel good about that. I don't think he's as exciting as a Kyle Guy or a Beauchamp. However, I feel like he's going to be way more valuable on the court. So give me my dynamic duo, my championship winning duo of Brandon Knight and Torrey Craig at the 1-2. And now I need 2 bums at 5 and 7.
The sentence, he's not as exciting of a player as Kyle Guy. Never thought I would hear that uttered in my life, but here we are. All right, Torrey Craig at number 2. The second to last player on this list. Former Pepperdine legend, Kessler Edwards.
Kessler Edwards? I don't know if I know who that is. I'm going to keep it a buck.
He was a former first-round pick by the Nets. I'm thinking 2021, I want to say.
Okay, well, because he was drafted by the Nets, he probably sucked. I'm going to go 7 just based on the fact that I've never heard of him before. And I'm banking on number 5 at least being someone that I know I can use on my squad. So Kessler Edwards, you're at 7, bud. Sorry about it. If you're averaging like 20 for this Team USA team, then I look like an idiot. But there's no way. There's no way.
just for the record, Edwards was the 44th pick of the 2021 NBA draft. I don't think that was exactly a bad pick there on your app. But your 5 slot and the final player on this list is former Alabama legend Jaden Shackelford.
Sure. I feel like Javonte Smart and Shackelford could switch places. However, my top 4 is absolutely 100% perfect. I think you could interchange the bottom 3, but my top 4, Brandon Knight at 1 was the greatest pick in my blind ranking history. That was the greatest pick in blind ranking history.
That was.
Putting Brandon Knight at number 1. That was unbelievable.
That was. And Torrey Craig at your 2 was in the same pool too, considering you still had 3 players left. Like the fact you got your 1 and 2 right, and they came early on. So incredibly impressive there. Hell of a run there. Just so we recap it. Number 1, we have Brandon Knight. Number 2, Torrey Craig. Number 3, Kyle Guy. Number 4, Marjon Beauchamp. Number 5, Jaden Shackelford. Number 6, Javonte Smart. And number 7, Kessler Edwards.
Yeah, this team, whoever constructed this team and did the recruiting process should never be allowed to do so again. Okay, I'm just going to say that right now. Whoever needs to be removed from their current position on Team USA, I know we're in the NBA offseason and guys aren't trying to get hurt and whatnot, but if Canada can convince Shea to play, we've got to have someone to convince anyone other than these 7 dudes to play for Team USA. Have to. Like, get a Drew Holiday or a Derek White or a, I don't know, get a Brandon Pajemski level player. Like somebody.
A borderline all-star like Austin Reeves.
There you go. I mean, Austin Reeves is better than the guys I think I named, but that's okay. Yeah, get somebody the caliber of like a Mo Bamba on this roster. And we'd be competing, like, like.
And that's why I did this. That's why I brought this at the end segment, because it was insane to me that the MVP of the NBA is currently helping his country qualify, and the best player that Team USA can get is
Brandon Knight. Brandon Knight,
yes.
Like,
and if you're all curious about the stats. The lead scorer on the team is Marjon Beauchamp, and Brandon Knight is the second lead scorer.
Okay. All right.
Brandon Knight is also the lead playmaker for what it matters.
Okay, so Beauchamp probably should have been in the top 3 then, over Kyle Guy.
Yeah, Kyle Guy is a bench player.
Probably. If Beauchamp's the leading scorer, that's a little low at 4. But, yeah, this is like your band of misfit toys. Wearing the USA colors. Like, this is literally the carbon copy of that image, the band of misfit toys.
That's why it surprised me so much to see just how bad this roster was. Now, I will say, the USA should still very easily make the FIBA World Cup Championships. That's not really a concern. Like, the 15th guy on this roster is probably better than any Nicaraguan player.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just, truthfully,
absolutely. Yeah.
So it's not. So guys like Shea and BJ Edgecombe are more so inclined to play for their countries because they might not have the talent to qualify without those 2 stars leading their team. Whereas the USA, yeah, you could take 15 guys that aren't in the NBA and still be like, yeah, we're probably good.
Yeah, true. That is true.
So they should make it above the other Latin American and North American teams. So that shouldn't be a worry for Team USA.
Yeah, no. Like, I'm making fun of these guys now, but, like, Shackelford would absolutely fry me in any basketball setting whatsoever. Any setting.
I think Jaden Shackelford has a record for the most points scored in a G League game. I remember he dropped 54 one time. I don't know if that's a record or not.
Damn.
But I think he's up there in terms of most points scored in a single game. Don't quote me on that exactly, but he's up there. So Shackelford is a bucket. All 15 guys on the roster are buckets. They were all college stars at worst, even if they didn't necessarily make it in the NBA. But at the same time, this is no Shea Gilgeous-Alexander or BJ Edgecombe.
Yeah, definitely not. All right, that was a fun end segment. I feel like I did pretty good given the circumstances.
I think you nailed that. I mean, yeah, like you said, you could debate your bottom three, but I think your top three and the ones that are most important, you got right. You got them right on. I wouldn't change a thing about it.
Beautiful.
Well, hell of a performance.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That will wrap up this episode of the Hoopers Lounge. We hope you guys enjoyed Summer League, which we didn't even talk about, is going on strong right now. We just had a matchup between the top 2 picks in the draft yesterday, and stay tuned for our next episode where we will go more in depth on that and how the class of 2026 rookies are looking in their first taste of NBA action. We'll see you guys then. Peace out.
Peace.